I just finished the first draft of a book. Thank you very much. It took me 3 years. So, long time. To be fair to myself, I did like graduate college, start a full-time job in that time. So it's not like I've been doing nothing, you know. But I worked really fast in the beginning. That's when I was really excited about doing it. And a weird thing happened when I kind of realized it was possible that I was going to be able to publish it. I started working on it way less. And I would work on it every once in a while, but years went by and I wasn't really making a lot of progress. I really wanted to finish it this year. So I asked my dear friends to come up with a threat. Something that I was going to have to do at the end of the year if I had not finished my first draft by December 31st. And let me tell you, they came up with a good one. If I had not finished my draft by the end of this year, I had to do stand-up comedy at an open mic night. Now, they were debating whether or not it'd be funnier to allow me to prepare the set. So I either was going to have to improv it or I was going to be given like a week to prep. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm hilarious. But I have no stand-up experience. And that's a skill. That's a skill as much as anything else is a skill. So I was like going to bomb. Like I 100% was going to bomb. My options were either to spend the year practicing stand-up comedy or finish the darn book. So I did. You might be thinking, you haven't published. Why would I be taking writing advice from you? The answer is I don't know. You're just going to have to decide if I'm trustworthy or not. But over the course of this year, I feel like my mindset completely shifted about this first draft. And it's that mindset shift that I really want to talk about today. What are some of the little things that I changed that all of a sudden made me start making progress where in the past I wasn't making any progress at all? So I've got a nice bulleted list and I'm going to share it with you. Now, nothing I'm about to say is original. You can find this advice anywhere. But when I was looking for advice when I first started writing, I looked in a bunch of different places, got it from a bunch of different sources. And sometimes the way someone words something really resonates with you. So maybe I can be that for you. With that, let's dive in. Advice number 1, let your first draft be bad. Now here's the thing. Everyone and their mother will tell you this. Literally any author, when they're asked, like, what's your advice for new young writers? They're like, the first draft's gonna be bad. First draft is gonna be bad, just let it be bad. Here's the problem. For me, that meant didn't flow the way I wanted it to. Maybe I dropped some foreshadowing that I never did anything with, or I had like a minor plot point I wanted to edit out, adding in a lot of the symbolism after the fact, like that kind of thing, right? So here's the thing, in my first draft, if you read it from front to back now, you random viewer, you'd be so confused. And to be fair to me, I have like multiple timelines. I have some complicated things going on. There's a narrative. There's not much else. And that's okay. That's okay. Because now that I have it like mentally done, now that I've closed the door on the first draft and I'm looking at it as a whole from a more editing perspective, I'm seeing the holes. And I'm seeing them in a way that I hadn't seen them when I was thinking of it as like, oh, what more scenes do I need? Already having put them in order and kind of looking at it as a whole, I'm like, oh, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need to put this over here. Ooh, I'm going to have to shuffle that around. So just mentally, it's so much easier. And I feel super accomplished. Your first draft does not need to be a completed book. It does not need to even make sense. That's half the fun. And now I'm putting it together like a little puzzle. Your first draft literally doesn't matter. It's not like you're locked into whatever you wrote. So yeah, just let your first draft be exactly that, which is a draft. My second piece of advice is to be curious about your own story. If you think of it like I need to think of what happens next, you get stuck a little bit. Think of it more like a curiosity. Like, what are these characters gonna do next? I don't know. I'm finding out with them. Outlines are, people do them. I tried to outline like 4 different times and I never ended up sticking with whatever I had. It's up to you. Your process is your process. Maybe you need an outline. But if you approach your story with more of a curiosity, like what are these characters going to do? Instead of thinking of it like I need to think of what these characters are going to do, it just feels a lot more approachable. And I think it also helps you picture your characters as like autonomous beings. Like, yeah, you have the ultimate control over them, but not really. Because if you do something that's outside of the realm of their character, your reader is going to notice. It kind of helps you think of them separate from you. Try not to get to the point that Stephenie Meyer was at, where she was like arguing with her characters about what they were gonna do. That's a little weird. But if you think of them as their own people that are making choices, and you're discovering what those choices are as you go, it helps a lot to think of what's happening next. Advice number 3, Build a community. Everybody thinks of writing as such a solitary hobby, and at this point, I don't know why. Now, this was a journey I went on, and I actually think it had to happen this way for me, so I don't regret it. But let me plant the seed in your ear the way that my friend did. My darling best friend is an actress. And every time I felt like really stuck or I was having that like artist existential dread, she like laughed at me in a very supportive way. She's like, girl, you studied computer science in college. Like everything you've ever done had a right answer. Art's not like that. Everybody has these freakouts. But every time we had that conversation, she would say to me, you need a writer's group. You need to find other writers to be friends with. Everything you're experiencing is super duper normal. Every writer I've ever talked to goes through what you're going through. And I just think you'd feel so much better if you had some friends who were doing it too. And every time I was like, no, I can't show other people my writing. It's shit. It's shit. I can't let people in. It's shit. And then they're going to think I'm a shit writer and then they're not going to want to be my friend anymore. But finally, I put myself out there. I have a friend who DMs a D&D campaign. And I asked him if he wanted to get together and just compare like world building. We had so much fun. We had a blast. And then he ended up telling me that a bunch of our other mutual friends all are either working on their own D&D campaigns or are interested in writing a story. So we put together a little group. Now, they were all people I was already friends with, but we've become super close over doing this, and I genuinely think I would not have made it to this point without them. Not just because they threatened me, but a few other reasons. One, accountability. We meet every 2 weeks and I have to have something to show them. So I started making progress just having something to show them every 2 weeks. But also, like my friend said, you just feel less alone. You feel like you're doing it with other people, and that really, really helps. But I do feel like in those early days, I had to kind of have the door closed because I don't know that I would have reacted as well getting feedback from my writing. In those early days, you're a little sensitive. So that one's more of a like whenever you're ready for it, but whenever you are ready for it, I highly recommend finding some kind of writers group or community. 4, don't be afraid to rewrite. The funny thing is, I actually have no issue throwing away chapters. If it doesn't serve me anymore, it's out the door. I never delete anything. I'm a digital hoarder. But I'm happy to be like, that's not in my story anymore. Moving on. But for some reason, the fear of doing that would sometimes stop me from moving forward. Like I thought I had to know exactly what was going to happen next before I started writing, because what if I do a bunch of work and then it's not useful? First of all, any day you write is productive. Maybe that should have been a piece of advice on its own. But if you write, you were productive. Even if you don't end up using any of the writing, like any day you write is a good day. It's all practice. But for some reason I thought, what if I head in a direction and then I hate that direction and then I have to rewrite like 4 chapters? And so I was never brave enough to try anything because what if I end up not using it? And again, it doesn't make any sense because when it came time to actually throw things away, I'm like a tyrannical dictator. I'm like, no, you don't serve me anymore. Off with your head. So I don't know why. I don't know why. Don't be afraid to rewrite. And it opens you up to try things. Again, that curiosity. What if I did this? And so what if it doesn't pan out? Who cares? And now moving into my second draft, I have something kind of experimental I'm trying to do that I'm really, really excited about. And the chapters I've done it with, I really, really like. And I'm getting great feedback from my friends. Never would have been brave enough to try it if I was afraid of having to throw all that work away and go back to the original first draft and start over. Who cares? It takes as long as it takes me. I have a job that pays my bills. Advice number 5, journal and carry it with you everywhere. I cannot tell you the number of times I've just been journaling about my day, my life, my emotions. And all of a sudden, a scene flows out of it. Or something that I wrote down, I'm like, ooh, that's pretty. I should finagle it and have a character have this thought instead. I saw a Virginia Woolf quote where she said something like a writer's journal is like an artist's sketchbook. It's so true. I think some people are backwards on this, which is crazy. But for me, my journal is like such throwaway writing. Like I don't care what I put in there. I'll cross stuff out. I'll like put arrows around. To me, it's like a sketchbook. So I might start sketching out a scene. I might try it 3 or 4 times longhand. And then whenever I end up typing it out on my computer, I've done like 90% of the work. But not only that, having the journal with you anywhere, you have no idea when that magical writer's bug is going to hit you. Yes, you should not wait for inspiration. Maybe that should have been its own tip. You are going to have to force yourself to write even if you aren't feeling inspired or you'll just never finish. But sometimes that inspiration does hit you. And when it does, you're going to want to have your notebook on you. So I do have a journal that's pretty much on me at all times. I have not yet reached the point where I'll just like pause my friends hanging out and be like, wait, I want to write this down. But sometimes I do like jot a little note, even just in my phone. And then as soon as I can, I'm like, okay, let me work on this. So I highly recommend that. Number 6, skip details if they are not important to the plot. If it is not pivotal to the plot, you do not have to figure it out right now. You do not have to know what that building is called. You do not have to know what that character's name is. You do not have to know what you're calling the magic system. I'm writing a fantasy. You don't have to know any of that. It doesn't matter. It's not important. It's important for a first draft that you get like the base pieces of the plot down. There are so many points in my book where it just says building name and something a little, more specific to tell me which building it is. I'll think of it. I'll figure it out, That's a problem for second draft, third draft, Mare even. That can be one of the last things you do. Just put it in brackets. And similarly, if you know you want a piece of a scene, but you don't feel like writing it that day, just put it in brackets. It's just a draft. Editing, you will go back to that and be like, oh shit. But that's a problem for her. You're just trying to get to that finish line. If it's not a pivotal plot point that you need to know in order to continue writing, then it can just go in brackets and you can do it later. Lastly, advice number 7, none of this matters. It's art. We here in America have the worst hustle culture. There's this idea that if you're not productive and if you're not making money off of what you're doing, then it's useless and it's pointless and why are you even doing it? That's stupid. Write because you want to publish, but write just to write as well. I want to publish, but I write just to write. Every time I write, I get into this mindless headspace that's like a meditation for me. It's a beautiful and wonderful feeling, and it's what keeps drawing me back in. And I put a little bit too much pressure on what I was doing, and I think that's why I got so stuck. I started to see the potential of my own work, and it freaked me out, and then I was worried I was going to screw it up. And so I just kept putting off the actual writing and generating idea after idea after idea and never actually putting it down on paper. And it's just because in my mind now, it wasn't my hobby anymore. It was possibly my future job if I could make it work. Why did I do that to myself? Now it's not about meditating. It's about making money. Who cares? I have a job that pays my bills. And if I have a job that pays my bills for the rest of my goddamn life, fine. It's about stealing those moments, having those times where you're just having fun, you're playing. And to me, writing is play. And as soon as I stopped thinking of it as play, I stopped wanting to do it. And that's the most important piece of it all. I had to switch back into that mindset of I'm playing around. I'm in an adult sandbox. And I'm in the ultimate sandbox because I can do whatever the hell I want. There are no rules except the ones I set. And once you set the rules, you have to stick to them. But while you're drafting, you can change those rules all you want. Figure out what you like. That's so fun. Don't take that away from yourself by putting so much pressure on it like it matters so much. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Do it because you enjoy it, because you love it, because it's meditative for you. And if you want to publish, that's a very valid thing. I don't like it when people are like, oh, and you shouldn't even want to publish. You shouldn't even be thinking of that. You should just do it because you love it, because it drives you. It's fine to want to share your art. It's fine to want to make money off of it. But don't put so much pressure on it that you can't even finish it because you're like, this needs to be my future job because I love it so much. Let me destroy it for myself. So yeah, that's my advice on kind of the mindset approaching a first draft. Again, I haven't published, so take it with a grain of salt. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about at all. But if this at all helped you, then I'm glad I did it because writing has brought me so much joy. And I just want to spread that joy. I want everybody who wants to write to feel comfortable writing. It's the ultimate hobby. It's so fun. So if you were delaying it, just start. And if you needed help finishing that first draft, hopefully this helped you. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.